Today's lecture is on files and streams. So what we're going to be learning about today is how you access files or directories. So we'll be learning about how to open up a file and be able to read from it. We'll be able to learn how to create new files and write to those files. So in C Sharp, it views a file as a sequential stream of bytes. So it's just a whole bunch of bytes that you're reading from this file. Now if you want to use the file class or directory class we're going to be working with today and these other classes, you need to include the system.io namespace. So this is the namespace that we're going to be using for all the classes we have today. So the first class we're going to be working with that we'll see some examples from is the stream reader class. So you're going to be using the stream reader class in order to open up a reference to a file and be able to read data in. Now there's lots of different reader classes. So you would use the correct type of stream reader class in order to read in the appropriate file. So for instance, we can use these stream readers and we'll go through some different file types. There's also stream writers. So you'll notice we got stream writers that we can use. There's also like XML writers that we can access in the XML namespace. But today we're going to be using the stream reader and stream writer classes to read and write from files. So the next class we want to learn about is the file class. And so this is really helpful in that all you have to do is say file dot and you get all these static methods where we can copy a file to a new location. So you can see, hey, here's the file, here's the destination location of the file. We can create new files, we can create a text file, we can decrypt and encrypt. Now these are fine for very simple encryption. However, you would never use these particular file encrypt and decrypt for any sort of cryptography. Like if you're doing a contract with a government or you need something actually made secret, you would never use these. Windows has a whole built-in encryption system, and so you'd actually use those if you need to do encryption. You can determine if a file exists. So, before you actually delete a file, make sure it exists, or before you open a file, make sure it exists. Or let's say the user has given you a file name to save. You'd make sure that file doesn't already exist before you write a new one. You can see you can move files, open to read, open text, read all lines from a file. So we'll be doing some of this today where we just open up a file and read it all in. So you can see this read all text just gives you a string with everything contained in that file. You can replace files, you can even set attributes on files and write to a file. So that's a lot of things you can do with the file class. There's also something called the directory class. And so as it says here, you can create directories, you can delete directories, you can determine if a directory exists or not. And come down here, we can take a look, get directories. So get directories within a directory, get all the files within a directory. We can move directories, and set all kinds of attributes and everything. So the directory and file classes are really helpful in order to manipulate files, which the next examples we'll be dealing with. It's also with your assignment number 7 that's you're going to need to actually write to a file. So this lecture will help you with that particular assignment. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at an example from the book, figure 17.5. So let me go ahead and get that opened. Bring this over here. Do view code. So you can see enter in the file or directory into that text box. When you press the enter key, it then pulls in the file name input text box.txt. First it says, hey, does that file actually exist? And then it calls this method called getInformation, which just prints out all the information associated with that file. Then once it's done that, it uses the stream reader class in order to read or to append the text that you've typed into this text box. So you can see this output text box.txt. So this actually reads in all the file. So this is the syntax. Now you'll notice once again we're using the using statement. Now why do we use the using statement? Because that allows us to always close this stream reader class, because the stream reader class, if we right click on it, go to definition, you'll notice that stream reader inherits from text reader, which goes to the definition. So as we go up, you'll notice here's iDisposable. So because of that, it'll call the dispose method for us. It's guaranteed to call the dispose method, which we'll call the close method. So that way you don't leave a file handle open. And so if you've ever tried to access a file and it says it's opened by another program, well, that's the bug you would be creating if you didn't put this in a using statement or didn't force it to call the close on that file. So that's what's nice about whenever you use these stream readers, always make sure you do a using so that even if an exception occurs here, it will actually close it down. And so by using the stream reader, we instantiate it, pass in the file name, and then we can just say stream read to end, which you'll notice it just passes back in a string everything that's within that file, and then we're just displaying everything that's in that file on append text. Now down here, if it's not a file, then we check to see if it's a directory. If it is a directory, we call get information on the directory. We printed all that information out. And so here we directories.get directories, we pass in that directory, so we're getting a list of all the directories within that directory. And then get information down here, we're just saying, okay, here's the file name, and then here's some attributes associated with that file name. So the creation date time, get last write date time, get access time. So if we go to our file system, let's just say for easy purposes, we just do something like, let's go to the C drive, we'll create a new text file. So we can open up Notepad. So this is a test. Go ahead and save it to the C drive. Call this test. Oh, it's not even going to let me write to the C drive. Oh well, we'll write it to documents. So if we come in here to users, documents, there's that test. So let's go ahead and come in here and run this. So now notice this is going to the directory, so when I press enter, it's going to give me all the information now associated with that directory. However, if I give it the full path name, so I say, test.txt, and I press enter, you can see it actually pulls out all the contents within that file and gives us data associated with that file. So it's pretty easy in C# to be able to work with files. So now let's go ahead and let's take a look now at an example that I've given you on Canvas on your chapter 19 files and streams. And so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to create a stream reader class here. So stream reader my stream. And I guess let's talk about actually what this program does. So what it first does is it says read all data from a file, open file for reading, read next line in a file. So what you'll do is you'll enter the path of a file here, like the one we just created. We can read all the data, or what we can do is we can open that file for reading and then just read one line at a time from this file. The other thing we can do is we can create a file below, which we'll have to update because it won't write to the C drive. And then we'll say, here's the file name, and then we can append and actually write to that directory. So let's go back now. So go to documents. Okay, so let's get C, users, and then documents. So here's where our test, and let's actually say, this is a test, then line 2, line 3, just so we have something simple to write here. And then I'm going to save it here. So we have the full path, /this. I'll go ahead and copy it. And so now when we run this application, let's fill in the code first, but I'm going to save away this location here. Okay, so let's now finish read all data from file. So remember that when we're saying read next line, so the problem here is that when we read all the data, we can instantiate a stream reader class, read it all in, close the stream reader class. Here we're going to have to open a file for readings, which means we're going to instantiate a stream reader, but then every time we click this next line, we need to use this same stream reader class in order to read the new line. So we need a class level variable for that. That's the stream reader. Now when we're reading in all the data, we can go ahead and get the file name. Now we need to create a stream in order to get all that data. So we come in here, we get the path for the file, we make sure that file doesn't already exist, or else we just give a message box, the file does not exist. We instantiate a stream reader class, pass in the file that we want to read from. Then what we can do is we can use that stream reader class to say file.read to end, and so this will read all of the contents into this, then we can just into this variable and then put it into our text box. Now I'm just showing you an example here that we do not have to actually close the handle to our file because we've put it inside this using statement. So that's very important that you use the using statement. So now the next thing we can do is we can open a file for reading to where we can just start clicking, the next. So another way we can get a handle on the stream reader is file.openText. So there's different ways. We can use the stream reader class, or we can say file.openText. You notice this returns a stream reader to us. So this gives us a handle to a stream reader, or we can do it this way. Exact same way to do it, just two different ways. So this has opened the file for reading. So you notice it opens it, but it keeps this myStreamReader in memory because it's a class level variable. Then we scroll down here, so now we need to start reading each line of our stream reader. So what we can do is we can just say mystream.readLine. And so we just take our stream reader and we just keep reading line after line in the code. We make sure it's not the last line in the file, which would make it null. And then if it is, we just say we're at the end of the file, and here's where you notice we close that stream reader. We don't want to leave it open, so we always want to make sure we close it. And then if it's not, we just keep appending on that new line. We say new line character and then whatever line we just currently read from our file. If we're going to write to a file, what we really want is this directory here. So we'll write to this directory and then tack on whatever file name's there. Make sure the file does not exist. And now we need to use the stream writer class in order to output it. And so here we'll do another using statement, but this time we're going to use the stream writer. So we just instantiate a stream writer inside the using statement, so it'll automatically close the reference, pass in the file name that the user gave us, here the full path to the file, and then we just write the data that the user typed in the text box. So this down here, whatever's in here, it's going to write out to that file. If we want to append to a file that already exists, we get the file path, then we access the stream reader, pass in that file name, and then we can just, I'm going to write, this is going to write a new line character essentially, and then I'm going to write the data that's in that text box that they've done. So when we run this, now we can take the directory, our full path of our directory, paste this in here, read all data, and you can see it read all the files, or all the data in that file. Now I've opened the file for reading, so now I can just keep clicking next to read line by line. And so you do this if you needed to read a line, do some processing, read a line, do some processing of the file. Then the next thing that we can do is, let's go ahead and take this here, call it this, and let's just put a bunch of garbage data, create the text. This file already exists because that was the one we did, so let's call this one test2, create the file below. So it created the file below with this text. So if we were to go to our documents, you can see there's test2, and then sure enough, here's all the data that we just printed out. Now the thing about Notepad is sometimes it won't display data correctly, so you actually have to open it up in WordPad, and it'll do that new line character. It's kind of strange. So now let's say we want to append 1, 2, 3, 4. Click append text, come in here, open with WordPad, and you can see it appended, didn't append it. Why didn't it append it? Oh, I think it went to this path over here. That's confusing. So there, it actually appended to that first file, 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can see the code worked. So that's about everything you need to complete your assignment and the very basics of being able to read and write from files. Now again, there's binary readers, there's XML readers, there's these stream readers to work with just text files, and so just basically the type of file you want to read or write to, you would just create the appropriate stream class.